welcome back to Legend of the Stars qualifying tournament number 3. We are having a great time today. We have seen plenty of epic play, lots of T4s, we have seen nukes even, the list goes on. So let's just say our thank yous again to Legend of the Stars for making this possible, to all the people that are contributing to the tournament, all the players as well, because without them we would have nothing to cast. So we are going to head down into the bottom bracket now while we wait for the top bracket to get its game on. We're going to go and have a look at Zock versus Adjux. They're going to be on Tag Craftius Maximus, which is an interesting map. But let's have no more ado. Let's head on into the match. It's just loading still. We'll be there in just a second. There we go. Let's get our mini map sorted out and we will be underway. Alright, so we have got Zock versus Adjux. So we can see our friendly German-Australian friend Zock is going to take Cyber and he's going to throw down his first land factory. We can see the plan is to just have a wander over towards those trees, take a nice look at the scenery and grab those 4 core mass extractors while waiting for that first engineer to get out of the gates and give us a hydro. We have got Adjux, who is also opting for Cybran. He is going to get his first land factory completed and is going to pretty much do the same thing. A nice walk through the park, through the wilderness, building mass extractors as he goes and getting his base underway. Now, what is going to be interesting with this is whether either of these guys push for early Navy, because we have seen where Zock has pushed for early Navy, but it hasn't really paid out too well because the overinvestment that he has put into that has meant that he's a little bit short on land units. But of course, not having any Navy can make you pay absolutely handsomely if you end up with a whole lot of boats around the back of your base doing damage. So yeah, it's gonna have to wait and see what these guys come up with. Right, the hydro is underway there for Adjux. He is going to have that done momentarily, and it looks like he's then going to move on to a couple more power generators before getting an air factory and then a whole stack of land factories. Let's have a look at Zock. What is his plan here? Well, nowhere near the same aggressiveness in terms of building land factories. We can see he did have a good walk over to those mass extractors. Perhaps just a little bit of a misclick there. He's going to throw down 3 extra power generators before getting a second land and then finally going a third air. That's interesting. It's going to put him a little bit further behind, and if Adjux can spot that, he may be able to capitalize and get a little bit of a leg up using the air advantage that he will end up with. But of course, that has to be countered by making sure Zock doesn't make any breakthroughs on land, and we might see something from one of these hunters there coming in to try and intercept the engineers, but so far there's actually nothing for them to pick up, so the expansion just a little bit slower from Adjux than Zock was expecting, because he has not managed to find any targets of opportunity. Interestingly though, Adjux actually going straight out for these mixes, which was obviously quite unexpected for Zock. He didn't even go and look to try and intercept that. We can see the ACU for Adjux is going to be moving directly north to take those mass extractors and then move all the way up to this expansion and secure it, which is fairly standard meta play. He will get his ACU up there. Zock will get his ACU down here, but it looks like Zock is taking his time at doing so. There we go. He is underway now. He does finally have his air factory up as well, so he is able to pump out a little bit. He's got 1 interceptor so far, and it looks like he went first interceptor just to make sure that he didn't get bombed too badly. He's got a scout now as well, so he can hopefully get a little bit of counter intel happening, because Adjux is flying right over his base, seeing exactly what he is up to. Zock going straight out here for these mass extractors as well, and putting down a naval factory, just the one planned for him. We can see over there is actually 2 naval factories planned for Adjux, which is going to give him a bit more production capability, but Navy, as we know, is quite heavy on the mass investment. That's going to draw a potentially critical amount of mass away from this land production in the center here, and especially with this many factories running, Adjux is going to need a lot of mass income just to keep those factories fed. Looks like Zock is starting to reap some of the benefits of that extra land factory early on, because he's got a few more units in the center here than Adjux has managed to put together. We've got a couple of Mantis down here which should be able to defeat the one from Adjux and then take out those mass extractors. Meanwhile, we've got raids coming up here, potentially even able to take out this engineer before it can get the hydro started. That would be fantastic in terms of a win for Zock. And we can see just a whole lot of units running around causing mischief. In terms of generated eco, how are these guys getting on? They're both sitting on, wow, 35 and 33. It ticks over just as I go to say it, with Adjux 1 mass extractor ahead. That'll be this one up here that his ACU has already gotten to, the second one going down, but Zock is going to be there momentarily, so he's probably only going to be about 20 seconds behind in terms of getting those things up and running. He still has the advantage here in the center, though. He manages to take out another guarding Mantis, and these 2 extractors are now free for the taking for him. He's going to be able to wipe those off of Adjux eco sheet. We've got a little bit of a push here around the top from Adjux. He's going to throw a couple of Mantis in to try and cause some problems. The Mantis trying to help get this point defense built, but I don't think it's going to be in time because there are 2 versus 1. So unless they focus fire this Mantis for a while, they are going to miss out. The engineer going down very quickly, and that is just shy of being completed, which is very, very unfortunate for Zock, and start to take fire on the mass extractors. We've got another little engagement happening down at the bottom here, where the Mantis are coming against a slightly lower number of Mantis from Adjux. And that's going to be another win for Zock. So Zock still just really succeeding with the micro, getting the numbers of units out to the front line, although it looks like he's going to have a little bit of a lack because he doesn't have much in the pipeline right now. Most of his Mantis have stopped over here to stop this raid. He's lost an engineer out the front here and a radar by the looks of it, and he's looking a little bit low on Mantis to continue doing what he is doing. Meanwhile, though, Adjux really managing to build up a decent little number to support his ACU, and that's a little bit dangerous. Adjux is probably aware at this point he could push right in. He knows Zock's ACU is right down here because he has scouted it. That means that this ACU is going to be free to come in and cause a lot of damage. He might want to just hold off pushing with these Mantis until the ACU can join them, otherwise he will lose them all before the ACU joins the party. Zock very nicely getting a cheeky little radar up on this plateau. That is nice to see, although can a Medusa reach that? I'm not sure that it can. Possibly. We'll have to wait and see if anything tries to come of that. But those are interesting little walkways. We can see the entrance to them here. You wander up and you go and have yourself a nice trek up to some mass extractors and some intel gathering. So Zock capitalizing on that so far, but Adjux not really able to. He is sending a little declaration of intent to colonize this part of the map, but he has to get the engineers up there, and they are going to be a little while away. Meanwhile, the ACU for Adjux is going to come into it and start dealing out some damage to those Mantis. Zock trying to back those guys up before he loses them all, but it's not going too successfully. He is going to lose most of that crew of Mantis. He's going to try and counter push up the top here, which is going to force Adjux to bring his ACU back up if he wants to keep this running. But he actually has a lot of Mantis at hand. He is going to be able to come up and deal with that, so Zock would be better off to pull back now, and he does have radar coverage as well, so he would actually be better off to pull those Mantis back before just creating that domination. And we can see those Medusas are raining fire down. The radar does go down. the mass extractors will go down soon as well. So this has been a little bit of a throwaway from Zock. He's actually going to give the advantage over to Adjux. Adjux with the ACU and a really good number of units compared to Zock, who is down here with his ACU, but only a very small handful. That is not particularly enough to really do anything. So I think you're seeing the net benefit of this big stack of land factories all pumping out Mantis. We've got a pretty good amount here, but I wonder if Zock is just a little bit over invested. No, his mass is very well balanced. He has got just enough to feed all those factories, so perhaps he will be able to start matching those numbers from Adjux. There is a pretty good delegation in the center here. Adjux is going to come in, and well, that is going to walk all over what Zock has prepared. That is going to pull a bunch of units away from this front line up the top just to defend in the center here. Adjux is finding that he is able to push at the moment without really encountering the ACU, so it's all in Adjux's hand. He's using his ACU to maximum benefit right now, while somehow managing to sideline Zock's ACU, who is just hovering around here, acting like nothing but an engineer, and is really doing wonders for Adjux's position in this game. He is coming out very well ahead because he's just not able to use the ACU. It looks like he's actually going to pull back, so he's realized that he is not making any kind of difference, because if he was to push up across this way, then the stream of units out of Adjux's base would be able to deal with him, but his ACU is just going to be a bit pointless, so he can't do it. This way he is going to come back and try and make a difference in the center here, try and swing it back in his favor. The best thing he could probably do right now would be to push across the top with his ACU to counter the effect of Adjux's ACU. If he can maintain control over here and continue to raid while ignoring the stream of units that comes out of Adjux's base, then Zock might be able to actually use the damage sponge to his advantage. We see now that he is able to get on top of it, but it is at the expense of pulling units away from this top battlefield. We can see just the ridiculous advantage that Adjux will have on the next push, so Zock needs to make sure he dispatches this and gets all of the units back into place for this top as soon as he can. So Adjux is coming in for an upgrade. We saw that was actually guns, so he's going to continue to use that ACU aggressively. He's going to continue to push in across the top. Zock's ACU, though, still really out of the game. He's just sitting back here. It's almost as if he didn't have an ACU at all. We can see now, though, the units from Adjux are starting to pour across the bottom. Now that he's lost that fight in the center, the only saving grace for Zock is that he's able to bring this clump of Mantis around the top, and that's going to force Adjux to counter that with these units, and they're not going to be able to continue pushing forward and wreck this part of his base. So this is going to put a little bit of pressure on the main base of Adjux, force him to respond. Meanwhile, Zock just needs to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen up here and Adjux pushes through. So Adjux is going to be trying to push through with that gun ACU, and it's not that far away from being completed. Once that does happen, that's going to be a bit of a problem. And does he have overcharge? Let's just have a quick look. He has got no energy storage, but about 300 energy surplus, so that will be enough to be able to do a few overcharges. He's going to take a little bit of damage from those Tech 1 subs before the gun completes, but it's not going to be too far away, and the subs there are just going to chase those off anyway. Zock lost a whole lot of his units. There was a big sacrifice to draw this unit clump away from the south, but it's bought him enough time to be able to keep those mexes alive, and he's counter-attacking with more than enough force to make that happen. The problem Zock's got right now is that because he's across here trying to assault Adjux's position, he has to get all the way through these ravines with a body of units, and Adjux only needs to move up or down slightly to be able to counter that. But we've got the same thing here, of course, as well. We've got all of the units having to roll up here for Adjux, and Zock just needing to move back and forth slightly to deal with it. But what is interesting is we have some rhinos on the field. We do see some rhinos rolling out there. Where is the T2 factory? There we go, right at the front there. It has got a lot of assistance on it. It is going to pour those guys out, and I think there is probably, with that rhino, more than enough to just punch through Zock's lines. So Zock was looking okay, but unfortunately now he is going to be on the defensive, very much on the defensive. He will want to be able to overcharge that. He has got 4,000 storage, so still not quite enough to be able to do it. But he does have a 500 surplus on power, so if he can get that energy storage up, he will be able to overcharge that Rhino. He is taking advantage of the lack of units up the top though, because of all the investment down the bottom from Adjux, and that's going to allow him to push through. So Adjux, what is Adjux doing here? He is building a naval factory, so he got gun, and then he is just staying in the water and not managing to affect anything. That's a little bit of a waste of investment. He really needs to get that ACU out and be dealing with huge swathes of Zock's T1 forces, but that doesn't seem to be happening. That's allowing Zock to come in here and potentially clear this out. Adjux is sitting on 89 generated mass, 57 to Zock, so Adjux clearly in the lead when it comes to economy, and that's only going to get better for him because he is going to be able to wipe this out without too much. No, this I spoke too soon. The ACU from Zock brings its gun upgrade in and starts to lay down fire. So these guys now actually caught between a point defense and a gun ACU, and Zock is going to have an absolute field day. Oh, how the tables have turned. That has absolutely wrecked and put that army into full retreat. But what is this? The full assistance on this factory has allowed it to get up to Tech 3 in a very short space of time. We're at 14 minutes into the game and we've got loyalists running around, so we're now going to have loyalists against the T1 army from Zock, and at this point Zock is going to need a new pair of underwear or get his own T3, so we'll leave it up to him as to which way he goes. But has he even got a T2 upgrade underway? I don't see anything much happening that is going to be extraordinarily difficult for him to deal with those loyalists. Adjux just remaining content in the water there. There's no need to put his ACU at risk now that he's got those loyalists out. They're just going to absolutely go to town on all of that T1. They're going to rip through and make a game of it, I think. That is going to be the death knell. Zock's ACU is still down here. He cannot get into place to overcharge those loyalists. No way does he have enough time. Those guys are going to be in his base and have wrecked his entire eco before he can possibly overcharge them. So he's just relying on a huge stack of Tech 1. The Medusa's raining fire down handily though, the loyalists standing still, but there is just a lot of firepower, a little bit of micro from those guys, and just making sure they stay in range and peppering away is going to win him this game if he can keep it up. We can see there is a Tech 2 air upgrade going on. Well, it has gone on. What is Zock's plan with this? That is very interesting. What is he going to do with that air tech that he that he can possibly affect now that he's got loyalists running around in his base? This Tech 2 power is not going to get completed. The loyalists are going to come in. They're going to take out all the engineers. They're going to finish off that power generator before it could even get online. This is GG, and Zock throws in the towel. And there you have it. Zock going down. Unfortunately, that was the bottom bracket as well. So Zock's hopes and dreams are dashed, and unfortunately, we won't be seeing any more of him in this tournament. Perhaps he should have picked UEF. Who can say? But that is the end of that. Adjux will continue on. He's going to try and win this bottom bracket. If he can do that, he'll be able to come back and take on the winner from the top to take out the tournament. There is a little bit of a cash prize as well. It's not as substantial as at the end of the year for the Supreme Tournament for the Supreme Commander, but still a little bit of pocket change is most welcome. Alright, that is probably going to do it for Crafty as Maximus. Let's move on with the tournament.